We ready to back them up? Good afternoon, and welcome to the 541st of our series of Distinguished Speakers programs. I'm Barney Bishop. I'm the privilege of serving as your president this year. Please silence your cell phones so that our program is uninterrupted. Now let's please stand and will join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I like the script. It's got the pledge in there. I guess they thought I might forget it.
Didn't know it.
At my age, I probably would. Joel Sowell Productions will be recording this program for our live stream audience that we have today. So welcome all of you that are watching from the leisure of your home or your office or wherever, which will be available for playback later this week. Harvey Bennett of Teledirections will also be recording this program, which will be formatted as a podcast and uploaded to the club's website for playback next week. So I saw Harvey here earlier, so thank you, Harvey, for being here. Our next scheduled program, so if you've got a pen and paper, I'll tell you about that. It's going to be on April 27th. It'll be a virtual program only, as we welcome former United States Secretary of the Treasury, Jacob Alum. Be sure to check the club's website to stay up to date on our upcoming speaker program schedule. Jacob Alum, that's going to be a fantastic speaker. Recognition of sustaining members. So I'd like to thank all of our club's sustaining members who provide additional financial support to our club each year. So all of you that are sustaining members, please stand so we can recognize you. Also, I would like to ask if anybody has brought some guests today, if they would like to introduce them. I know our media past chair has, so why don't we start ladies first, Madam Chair.
So delighted to be here with you today in this facility. I don't assume we'll be packing this with all happy faces, masks, and COVID. I have two great guests in Florida prepaid, and we'll show open enrollment soon, so happy for you to go online. Brian Bilkey and Bill Thompson.
So any guests? Anybody else have a guest today? Yes. Jim. Oh, Florence. Very good. Our chairman.
Being the good gator that I am, I'm reaching across the aisle and welcoming Blake Renfro, who's with the College of Business. He is the Director of Business Development here at FSU.
I'm so glad to see that you're turning the other cheek there, Bill. That's right. Yes, Mary.
I'm pleased to have two guests today. First, my husband, the Honorable Bruce Hoffman, and my dear friend, Kevin Riley, who is working for the Speaker of the House, and he's also a former student body president at the University of Florida. So there's a few of those in the room today.
Okay, good. Yeah, Kevin, can I see you just before you leave? I'm still a lobbyist. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mark Adler, who will introduce our distinguished speaker. So let me introduce Mark. He is a native Floridian. He's a double graduate of the University of Florida, both with a bachelor's degree in political science and a law degree. At Gainesville, he was the student body president, so we at least have two here. And he was the first student member of the University of Florida Board of Trustees. He currently serves as the chief of staff for Enterprise Florida, the principal economic development organization for the state of Florida. He brings a wealth of experience in entrepreneurship leadership as a legal counsel and as a Business Development Officer. Prior to his public service, he was in the private sector as the Vice President of DRB Capital, a Blackstone portfolio company. He handled business development and investor relations for the Delray Beach-based company. He's also served as Chief Executive Officer at Triple F Entertainment, a regulatory complex that is based in Orlando. He founded a startup called TrackDocs and served as their CEO, and the company pioneered the secure transfer of electronic medical records, so that's pretty interesting. He also served as general counsel of an e-commerce company and as executive director of the Florida Republican Jewish Coalition. I'm not quite sure when he sleeps, but it is my pleasure to introduce Mark Adler. Let's give him a warm Economic Club welcome.
Now that you've all had an opportunity to see my mask, I'll take it off. Thank you for having me today, although I am a member of the Economic Club. When I first arrived here in Tallahassee to start my role as Chief of Staff, I was privileged to have Marion Hoffman to work with. I arrived and said, Marion, how is it I become involved in the community? She took my credit card, and lo and behold, I became a member of this organization. Since when? But I am up here today to talk about today's speakers, and I am privileged to have the privilege of being able to introduce at least one of them several times. But today's speakers will allow us to highlight a truly made-in-Florida kind of success story. They both reflect steady foundations that have worked with to build tech spaces and continue to make sure that government is helping grow businesses in Florida. You will see a lot of things now about tech grabbing headlines, a lot of things coming to Florida, but what does it all really mean? I believe that both Ricky's remarks and the Secretary's remarks will really bring us to it. So I want to make sure that I introduce them properly. And of course, both of them, when you go and ask them, what highlights would you like me to say in introducing them, they're so humble, they're like, oh, well, don't worry about it, which is, part of the course with successful people. But to my left here, I've got Richard Ricky Caplin. He's a leading entrepreneur who's launched and led multiple organizations, including the HCI group. He currently serves as the CEO of HCI. He serves as CEO of Healthcare and Life Sciences at Tech Mahindra, which was acquired by HCI in 2017. He is also a co-founder and partner in several other companies. To hit the highlights that also from his business acumen, he was honored in 2016 by the University of Florida's Gator 100 Awards, which celebrates the 100 fastest growing Gator-owned businesses in the world. In 2019, he was recognized at the University of Florida's 40 Under 40 list, honoring Gators who are successful in their communities and professions. He also lives in Jacksonville, Florida, with his wife and 3 children. He is a former CPA, graduated with a bachelor's and master's degree in accounting from the University of Florida. And over the course of his career, he's attended many executive education seminars at both Harvard and the University of Michigan's Ross Business School. Can I get a round of applause for our first speaker? Our second speaker, I have the opportunity every day to get up and work with, and I know that he's going to want me to remain humble, but I think that you need to know a little bit about the man who's sitting on the left here. Secretary Sowell can be described as a true American hero. He has done so many things in his life. He is a lawyer. He has served as a student body president at the University of Florida. He is a former Marine and is combat decorated and did a tour of duty in Iraq. This is the type of person that we need to be holding up in today's society because he is a man of integrity. And before I give the microphone over to these 2 individuals, I want to tell you all just a little quick story about that integrity. So when he was running for student body president at the University of Florida, I was part of the opposition party that was running against him. I've often described his ascent to the presidency as a freight train. What he basically did was go in, meet as many people as possible. With his charm, personality, and perseverance, he completely smashed all opposition that stood in his way. Which I'm still bitter about. The day after he won the presidency, I called him and I said, Mr. President, I will do anything I can to support you in your endeavors, and he has done the same for me for the last 20 years. Ladies and gentlemen, my boss and friend, Mr. Secretary Jamal Sowell.
Mark, amazing. Thanks so much. So my background, I went to law school. I never practiced law. I thought it was too boring for me to be at a desk all day. So I went into the business, went to the court. And prior to that, I went to Afghanistan in the Marine Corps. And Mark did not mention the president after him was a woman named Nikki Fried. So for those who may know that history, whether it was George Smathers, student vice president, Stephen C. O'Connell, and many Dean Kent, and many others who are involved in the process now. And what that means to me is a lot. I went to a small Christian school. My senior class had 15 students. We played 6-man football. So for those who know about the backwoods of Florida, you know about 6-man football. It's in small Christian schools. You don't have the big teams and players and all that. But amazing experience. My major was in religion. My mother raised us to be pastors. I didn't want to do that after a while, but I thank God that my brothers did it, and I applaud them because they really have a passion for it. And that passion really allows me to do what I do today. So I studied in Israel, learned some Hebrew and everything, learned about other things and backgrounds, and I kind of took that to my involvement in college. So even though as a Christian, I joined the Jewish community, my Christian college, made some friends, just learned about the culture. And as I was getting involved, I wanted to join the student body president. And there were only 2 members of the fraternity council fraternity who supported me. One was a guy named Alum, who went to FSU undergrad, grew up law, and he's now the head of office of Disney. The other guy was Caplin. And that says a lot because it was not popular at that time. It was something that he even got blackballed from the organization because he did, but because he believed in me at a time when many thought I was crazy. It was Jamal, people would never run against the establishment. You have 100 years of history, that's your colleagues, so how people just don't do that because if you do, you will be blackballed for life. That's not true. But I said, well, my major is in religion. My major is not in math, it's in miracles. So with that being said, Ricky believed in me many years ago. That is how we met. And I'm thankful for him in regards to his leadership. So this is really exciting today with his background. It's very intriguing, very exciting. He's one of the few people that I've kept in touch with over the years, whether it was airports, football games, events. From that time we met, I'm thankful that he invested in me when a lot of people were doubting. And I know that those here may have that story, and I hope the story can encourage you today. So Ricky, just tell us about your background and how you got to this point. Stuff that people may not read about on paper.
This is something perfect. First, let me say I'm so grateful to be here. I'm delighted I got to speak with you several beforehand. Many of you have paved the way for Jamal and I thank you for that. My background, I have a mother and father, grew up in a suburb of Jacksonville called Orange Park. Went to a small private school, St. John's Country Day. Went to the University of Florida to do the 3-2 program. And I always kid around, but honestly, the experiences running for student government with you, Jamal, being involved with a bunch of crazy people in fraternity, and all the extracurricular opportunities in Florida really paved the way for us to overcome controversy as we launched our careers. So I actually trained to become an accountant, but I also was going to go to law school. I think it's a theme here. Took my LSAT, but I broke up with my girlfriend the week I was supposed to be studying for my LSAT, so didn't do quite as well, and God had other plans for me. So I went into the backup plan and worked for KPMG in Jacksonville for a couple of years, and was more interested in philanthropy and politics and other sorts of things, and so I wound up leaving there, and eventually 2 years later started a company called the HCI Group. We didn't know what we were going to do. We started right at the height of meaningful use. And the American Reinvestment Recovery Act just, I think, put $19 billion aside. I didn't even know what electronic health record was at the time. We were like, let's go figure this out. And so my brother-in-law and I created the company. And we started in a friend's townhome and went on a big road trip, just talking to people, learning, and eventually grew and dumped everything back in the company. We grew to about 1,000 employees and 1,000 contractors, and became one of the leaders, and we sold it to a company called Caplin. Caplin is about a $6 billion company. We're a digital transformation company, 117,000 employees, and I've had the pleasure of working with them for the past 4 years.
So with your background in Jacksonville, I know you're here in Tallahassee, and my father's from Jasper, Florida, and my mom's family came from Tulare, Florida. So with these parts of Florida, when you think about where you're from, in the media, when they hear tech, Silicon Valley, they think Miami, South Florida. Why has Jacksonville been special to you? How have you been able to grow coming from Florida?
Yeah, fortunately in tech, we're in a global environment right now. It doesn't matter as much where you live. And so one of the most important things being in tech is having high quality people. Fortunately in Jacksonville, we've got access to some of the bigger state universities that aren't too far from us. We also have University of North Florida and JU and the State College as well. But so there's a wealth of talent. And even before COVID happened, I was sharing about the opportunity to hire people in Florida for a fraction of what you might pay in Manhattan or Silicon Valley that have the same educational background and trades that are successful. And so obviously a lot of people have caught on to that recently as you have New York moving to Florida, but it's a great source of talent. There's no state income taxes, and I think Jacksonville's been a great place. I also think we need people who are going to actively be a spokesperson and recruit tech companies. As you see throughout California, there's people that are willing to move, but we need advocates like Secretary Sowell. Francis Suarez in Miami has done a lot recently and encouraging to say, hey, Florida's here, open for business, come to Miami and we'll go out to that market. And I think we're starting to see leaders do more of that.
So when you talk about leaders, I think that Mary Hoffman always says, Jamal, I need to get to know the young leaders, because when I'm retired, they will be in charge. Which is a great point. And which is how I met Mary years ago when I was a student, back when I had hair. So, and she was still looking the same. So for us, as you build, in terms of your capital family offices, I know we have JJ Kikes here with your team today. Tell us about what you're doing as a venture capitalist, what you're doing in healthcare technology, because all of that is exciting, especially when you hear about the boom of people leaving the Northeast, leaving the Midwest and West Coast, coming to Florida.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I talked a little bit about my career at Tech, but where I spend a lot of my time now is with our family office, which really has 3 pillars. We have operating companies, which isn't just tech. We do have tech in it. We have HR technology staffing, but we also have civil engineering, construction, children's dentistry groups. But in our investment strategy, which is your more traditional venture capital and private equity, that's where we're making a lot of investments in tech companies. As a matter of fact, last week we closed on 3 Silicon Valley-based tech startups that are very high-profile Series A and Series B companies. One of them actually will be publicly announced tomorrow in the national press. It's an e-commerce super app called Price.com. The angels and the people involved in our former CXOs of Twitter, Airbnb, Pinterest, the co-founder of Priceline.com. I could go on and on. And these are Silicon Valley people, but the Caplin family office is actually leading that round and put that team together right here in Florida. We also have Cogni, which is one of the top 10 digital banks in the country. Also another Silicon Valley firm. And then we've got one of the top cybersecurity startups called Safe. They were the top cybersecurity firm of the year last year in India. They were incubated out of University of Bombay. They moved to Palo Alto. John Chambers, who's the CEO of Cisco, is the lead investor and serves as one of the lead members on the board. And these are all companies that right here from Jacksonville, Florida, were able to join the board and help pave the way.
So I know in your background, you always talk about what you do in terms of how you give back. And with my brothers who are in the ministry, they always say, Jamal, what you see on Sunday is the easy part. It's all the background stuff that we have to do. So I know with your background, with being involved in human trafficking efforts and the Christian ministry, the way that you live that out through your work. Tell us about what you have done in the capital analysis.
Thanks for asking that, Jamal. The day I sold my company to Tech was the day that
I had a personal epiphany about what's really important. I went through kind of a process where God started to reveal to me why I had sold to an Indian company. I knew nothing about the country of India, except I wasn't crazy about curry, which by the way I like now. And actually, my brother-in-law, who's my co-founder, came to me and said, "Hey Ricky, there's an Indian company that wants to buy you or buy us." And the first words out of my mouth were, "I would never sell to India," just for my lack of knowledge. But I can tell you, it's been one of the best decisions of my life. And through that process, I've learned so much. I get to work with legendary business leaders in India. There's a gentleman named C.P. Gurnani, who is my boss. He's the CEO of Caplin, top CEO in all of India. He was the chairman of NASCOM, which is their IT software trade organization. There's our chairman, Alum, who's like a Rockefeller of India, tremendous philanthropist, man of integrity. And they've brought a lot of just opportunities to meet people like Mukesh Ambani. And I see India as this emerging economy. I think Mukesh said the Indian economy is going to go from 3 trillion to 10 trillion in the next several years. And we're going to have a shortage of 150 million engineers globally, half of which he expects to come from India. Which, by the way, I think is a big opportunity for Florida to produce some engineers as well. But with that said, I also realize you have tremendous, really talented, really smart people, really successful people in India. It's a massive country. It's a country of 1.3 billion people, half of which are referred to as Dalits or untouchables, and they really don't have much as a resource. And so, and also India, an amazing country, I can love it, I think you can tell that, but they also have more human slavery than anywhere in the world. I've heard up to 40 million people, and this isn't just sexual trafficking. This is bonded labor, and this still exists in today's day and age. I won't get into the graphics, but God touched my heart, and I wanted to do something about it. And one of the things, with Prime Minister Modi, there's been some regulatory changes with FCRA that makes it harder to get your traditional donations and funding into the country of India. And so what we're looking at, how can we build businesses from within India where they can be 100% self-sustaining for the people and children of India, so that we can be providers for the poor and defenders of the people, stand up for righteousness and justice. And so that's been a big passion. We've got businesses we're launching in India. We also have a platform around education. And then on the human trafficking, there's some really exciting things that we're doing, some of which I can talk about now. But C4ADS, the Center for Advanced Defense Studies in DC, one of my business partners is the founder of, and they've done some unbelievable research, and we're actually learning where the supply chains are completely out of whack, and how we can act upon that, bring awareness to those companies and the bigger companies from around the world, so that hopefully they can take action on some of the bonded labor.
So with your work, I know you talk about justice and education initiatives. That's very intriguing, very good, because now you're not even 40 yet. So how has your age, how you were raised, shaped and currently shapes how you operate as a business leader? Because you don't have to do this. You can just make a lot of money, sell companies, and that happens a lot. In terms of the civic piece of what you do, and I call it a social entrepreneurship. And tell us about what new initiatives that you want to work on in the future.
That's a loaded question. So, listen, God gave us all unique talents and gave us an opportunity to do something with it. And it's just through an amazing life and my relationship with the Lord that I realized that is my goal, to use everything I got to glorify God. Don't always do it perfectly, but that's the end goal. And so my colleagues in the family office with me, and then with our different initiatives, know that's our end goal. And so one of the enablers of that, we recently launched an accelerator it's kind of a hybrid between an incubator, an innovation center, and an accelerator. And it's called the Aurora Forge. Aurora as an Aurora Borealis, or strands of light and darkness, or forge, as you would forge metals together, we're going to be forging companies together. And the two co-founders of it, one is my good friend, Dr. Newton Howard. I'll give you 30 seconds on Newton. Army, CIA, 3 PhD used from mathematics to cognitive sciences and quantum computing. Created Wi-Fi LAN, Skype. When he left the CIA, General Richardson gave him the safe harbor. He's faculty at, he's on the board of trustees at Oxford, CEO of the Mindshare Project at MIT. Two of his companies he created with Google Earth and Google Translate. I could go on and on about Newton, but he does, everything he does is just for the greater good. There's another gentleman in Atlanta named Ross Mason. Ross is a quadriplegic who's a tremendous philanthropist, Silicon Valley, private equity guy. And what we've done is we've created the Aurora Force, focuses on technology, AI, and robotics, and 2 industry verticals, health tech and gov tech. We've got a group of about 40 to 50 limited partners that are some of the most influential people in the various industries. There's the health tech advisory partners. These are guys like the CIO of Cleveland Clinic, CIO of Cedars-Sinai, CIO of Mount Sinai Top Health Systems, Dan Garrett, who started PwC's healthcare technology practice and ran it globally. We've got possibly a former Secretary of Health and Human Services who said he wants to join. It's just not official yet. We've got top academics. So that's the health tech. We've got the academic and chief science. These are guys like Ophir Breeder, who's the head of computer science and AI at Georgetown. He actually created Twitter trending algorithms. Secretary, you just nominated him for the Florida Inventors Hall of Fame. He's another Florida guy. And we also have Dr. Henry Christensen. He's one of the professors who made Georgia Tech famous for AI and robotics. He's now the head of AI and robotics at UC San Diego, co-founded a $4.5 billion robotics company, wrote the United States Strategic Plan on robotics and AI. We also have Gordon Hanson, who wrote Creative Work, Good by Choice, which is Collins, a top professor at Apple University. On the GovTech side, I have three-star admirals, generals, and go on and on. But what it is luminaries who have a passion to do good, but also maybe have never run and launched businesses. And what we're trying to do is launch companies using our IP and problem statements, create the operators, and create companies where, once again, these companies can turn income. And what's great, it's going to be based here in Florida. Talking between Lenny Curry and Francis Suarez, whether we're putting Jacksonville or Miami, that's yet to be determined. But we're going to Tel Aviv, Israel, and Bangalore, India as well. And the one in India goes back to the spiritual entrepreneurship, because it's going to be an ecosystem to create these companies, be self-sustaining within India. So that's an example of this.
Well, in Hebrew, the term you're excited, when you tell us, you say, "L'chaim." So with that being said, before we open up the floor for questions, I want to a question for you real quick. In terms of the environment, in regards to our business environment, why is Florida better for businesses than what you see in your travels in New York, California, and other states?
Listen, Florida has a lot of things. Let me first start by saying one of the biggest hurdles that I think we face. One of my friends is a gentleman named Oisin Hanrahan. He's an Irish entrepreneur. Was doing real estate development and commercial development in the Czech Republic. And then he went to Harvard, dropped out of Harvard Business School to start an app called Handy. Handy was a super app. He sold it to Angie's List. And he's now the CEO of, very recently, of Angie's List, which I think they're like an $8 million market cap. They're based in New York City. And I was having a conversation with him, and I'm like, listen, why don't you move people to Jacksonville? You know, move some jobs to Florida. Florida's great. Give him all the reasons I thought it was great. He's like, I'd love to, but do they have the right type of tech talent? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I think they have the right type of tech talent. But when you get into it, there's emerging technologies where certain cities produce more of than we do here in Florida. And also, we're very decentralized when you look at this. We don't have like a hyper city where a lot of it is, and that's where some of these other cities. So I think it's very addressable, but that's one of the things we need to produce the right type of tech talent, and we need to say, hey, Florida's here for business. We've got it, and we'll work with you to produce the right type of tech talent. That's one of the hurdles that we need. With that said, it's Florida. Come on. No state income tax. We're open for business. Our governor has done a fantastic job, keeping, I think, many people, no matter what side of the political aisle, can look to Florida State open. The COVID numbers are great. Real estate's going up. We've got sunshine year round. We've got tremendous entrepreneurs, but we're really wide and spread out state. I hope you're going to see cities like Miami and Tampa and Orlando and Jackson investing more and more in creating tech hubs and tech centers, partnering with universities to produce the right tech talent, and you're going to see a clustering effect that you've seen in some of these big cities. I think Florida's already on the right path. Perhaps there's some things we can do to expedite that.
For us, the governor has really been adamant about workforce talent in terms of this is goal for Florida to be number one in talent by 2030. And that's really is the new incentive when it comes to companies who want to relocate. They're asking, do we have education, K-12, school choice, higher ed, that is producing the talent for tomorrow? But I do want to open up the floor for questions, because I know we have some exciting leaders here who've done a lot of good work with Doug Wheeler down in Colorado Road and others who are always emailing me at nighttime and midnight saying, Jamal, I have this idea. How about this? But that excites me because anything that comes from leaders who've done it for years, I'm always very receptive to the feedback.
Good. Mr. Secretary, Mr. CEO, notwithstanding some great minor politicians like the young Marjorie Price Turnbull, it is time for this community right here, where you're this to transcend political realities that hinder the state between governors and mayors. Respectful challenge is, don't miss the opportunity. There is something brewing in this city right now that can be a key to your efforts statewide as a tech hub. And you need to go to be totally willing. There's some of us who can introduce you to some people in the private sector here. People don't understand there is a private sector here in this town. To do things that would be precedent setting for economic development. That's all I'm going to say right now, but don't miss the talent, the challenge, and the opportunity. I'm fed up, and a lot of us are, with the inability of city leaders and state leaders to work together. You have a great opportunity. Please seize it.
On that point, because Mayor Daley has definitely been very accessible, but also very, very active in our efforts in regards to including businesses. And also because there's talent here, the university, UC, GCC, and so in regards to the whole thing, this can be a hub for tech talent in the future. I mean,
Well, looks like you've accomplished a lot at a relatively young age. Any area or a business line that you thought about maybe doing and you didn't and you regretted, and even more so, any failures you'd like to share with the group? Because I know that's always a great learning point. So, I mean, I hate to bring that up, but it can be insightful.
That's a great question. I think part of my problem is I think everything's a good idea. I'm a perpetual optimist, and yeah, there's definitely some businesses I've gotten in. Without naming them explicitly, there's industries that I wanted to be in. Maybe construction, maybe different types of staffing that I shouldn't have focused on. And what I realized is, yeah, everything can be a great idea if you have the right leaders and the right resources. But it's really a prioritization of time and efforts. And so even though I'm in many industries, I'm focusing more and more on technology. That's where I've had success and have been fortunate to make a lot of relationships there in healthcare. You want an example of mistakes? I make those all the time. I still do, but I just try to hire people a lot smarter than me to keep me from making as many. But when I started what we know as the HCI group today, I literally we started with no money. I think I paid myself $10,000 the entire first year. It was in a friend's townhome to launch this company out of. And I was oblivious to litigation and different obstacles else we faced. All of our startup capital was out the window in like no time. And I literally remember waking up with like cold sweats, like that kind of like stress, like what is going on? And that was an opportunity for me to grow. God used that as an opportunity for me really to stop carrying everything in the burden and turn it over to Him. And that's kind of how I approach business now. I've dealt with class action lawsuits. I've dealt with people slandering me. I've dealt with you name it. And some of those are just the cost of doing business and being in business together. But it's just like any other phase of life. We're going to go through peaks and valleys, but it's about what's the most important thing us, what are we going to focus on, and what do we think is in our control? Because I know nothing's really in my control. So hopefully that answers your question.
So real quick, so then what would you tell a young Barney Bishop who's 30 years old, who had dark hair, who was still very smooth and savvy like the current Barney Bishop is? What would you tell them if they had an idea about the future trajectory to start a business when it comes to entrepreneurship?
I have a feeling Barney needed me to tell them anything. But what I would say, and that's what I say to any entrepreneur that I speak with, some of the most important lessons I've learned. In life, you're going to have a gray area. It's just going to, not everything's always going to be black and white. And one of the most important lessons I learned the hard way is if there's a gray area, go the most conservative route. Do not take the risk. Do the ethical thing. Do the right thing. That'll save you a lot of heartache in the end, even though short term it may not be the easiest. In the end, it'll always be. Also, be prepared to fail, and maybe get good at failing so you can fail faster, and move on to the next thing. I think I have been fortunate to have mentors, not just business mentors. I've been fortunate to have people that I really look up to that have great values, that have really just set a great example for me and have been a sounding board. My wife, I wouldn't consider her a mentor, but I got lucky. I married just a wife who has tremendous wisdom and a tremendous heart. She's been a rock for me. And what's great too is we have a mutual faith and the same rock. It's the same rock. So those are some, I guess, lessons, not necessarily that Barney would have needed. Anyone might need.
Florida is not seen as a very active state in venture capital. What do you think? How can you help play a role in making sure that there's more venture capital opportunities in the Southeast instead of always having to go to Silicon Valley or to go to some other Boston or research triangle in North Carolina? Do you think that we could grow ourselves into being a place where we could help startup companies get funding and then move on?
Yes, is the question. You nailed it. That is an issue that we face, and there's a couple reasons people go to Silicon Valley. Okay, there is an ecosystem there. You've got universities with huge endowments, and you've got lots of people who have had a lot of success and hang out there, and it just is a revolving circle. But what I've found is there's no lack of talent and good ideas. It's can we attract them? And you're seeing something very unique in Miami right now. It's well known. Anyone in Silicon Valley, I have friends ask me what's going on in Florida right now. Why are people coming? It's because we're saying we're open for business. We want you to come here. We're going to be business friendly. And I think it doesn't have to just be Miami. It can be Tallahassee too. It can be Jacksonville. We need mayors that are going to lead. They've got a great governor, a great secretary of commerce that are going to back them up. And we need to be very intentional about it. I think that there's a bigger play for the universities. I don't mean to be critical of our university system. I think it's a first-class university system. But we're not overly strategic. Everything's very political. We need to locate our tech schools in big cities where businesses are, not in the middle of nowhere. Tallahassee is not necessarily that. I went to the University of Florida. If there's a way to put the tech school in one of these big cities, you're going to see a huge thing happen. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of technology entrepreneurs that have gone on to have tremendous success from the University of Florida or Florida State or others. We have a handful. But in these schools where you have the university working with government, producing the people, located for business, that's the ecosystem for success. We already have a political environment that is going to feed that if we can put that together, being open for business and having great leaders like we do in our state.
So what is happening in Miami? Is it all the New York folks, the money folks that are coming down, financial tech sector and everything that's coming down to Florida? Is that what you're inferring?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things going on. One is people are finally fed up if you live in Silicon Valley or New York, right? And so there's two states, there's many states, but two that are larger than anyway. You've got Texas. I mean, they've got a great tech hub in Austin and some of the other places. Dallas is a phenomenal community. And you've got Florida. These are, like, when you look, these are the economies that are thriving, that are pro-business, and saying, hey, come on down. But Miami, in the state of Florida, kind of has more of that, you know, big city feel to it, right? It's got more nightlife, more sense, but you also have a leadership there that is very active on social media, that is engaging with these businesses. And guess what? That's how millennials and Gen Zs who happen to be a lot of these tech companies, that's how they interact. It's going to be on Twitter and Instagram and call them out publicly, and the next thing you know, there's a dialogue going on, and you're getting invited to go tour their facilities and recruit them to your city. So I think we need to be intentional about how we create some of these. Yes?
Yeah, so I used to be at the University of Tennessee, and we were tracking Amazon in Nashville. And one of the first questions they asked us from the business school was, and the engineering school was, where's the talent, right? You know, what can FSU do? What can you do? What can we do to help? And what's the most practical thing to do? Probably show up. I would imagine people want to show up.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, do they have smarter people at, you know, Stanford than FSU or University of Florida? Maybe, but I think that's not really the most important thing. They've got an ecosystem that supports it. They've got all sorts of companies there that are hiring out of it, and that's what we're missing. It's like the chicken or the egg. I think if we can proactively recruit these companies, go after them, and show them how we're getting talent. So let me give you some ideas. One is, what are the technologies that are going to be most important and most valuable for your strategic roadmap as a firm? Do we know what those are? And can we launch a program to feed them employees and talent? Can we create some sort of accelerator or hatchery? And we do this at most universities. But I can tell you there's other universities that do it on a much bigger scale. And I think that'll be a big part to create the ecosystem. And then I also think, let's think outside the box instead of the traditional method. We're a global economy now. Why can't we do some sort of partnership with Israel or India or something like that where we're recruiting the best of the best right here to Florida, to our universities and these tech talented. Let's put campuses there. Let's create an environment where we're going to have more talent. Guess who's filling up Silicon Valley right now? Stanford can't produce enough students. It's India. It's other countries. So I think if we have bold leadership that wants to make things happen, that really gets into this, I think there's a huge opportunity to disrupt the tech ecosystem.
All right, so I know we are talking time, Ricky, but in terms of last comments, any words of wisdom for Caplin in regards to your path, your students, but also for those young leaders who are here and they want to hear some thoughts?
I see a lot of luminaries and people who have paved the way to create the opportunity that we have today. I think this is awesome. I'd love to hear, you know, from you. We've got some great ideas. How can you, as an economic club, bring some of these ideas forward? You guys have the influence here in the state capitol. I think we need business leaders such as yourself to step up and pave the way, and let's work together as a state in harmony in our strategy versus letting each city compete with each other. Let's figure out what we're going to be the best in and how we're going to do it and where we're going to do it. This is a great opportunity for you guys to help us get there. Thank you so much for having me.
So, as a final comment, in 1952, George Mathers was running against Paul Pecker for the USA. And in that discussion, it was alleged that George Mathers called Pecker a thespian. So with that note, I hope you put him in a good show for you today. Thank you.
Let's give him another welcome. Thank you for it. Ricky, if I could just have him for a second, I'm going to put that down. It's a token of our sincere appreciation. Want to come up here for a second? It's a token of our sincere appreciation for you sharing your ideas, and I've got a couple of projects I'd like to talk to you about. No, it's a sincere token of our appreciation for your comments today and for joining with us. This is a sculpture by a nationally renowned artist, Stanley Proctor, here in Tallahassee, and this is yours. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, and that is it for for today, and remember that our next meeting will be on April the 27th with U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, Jacob. Thank you for being here today. Happy to be back in the official alumni center, right? All right, great. Thank you.